First of all, Endless 8 was finished in 3 chapters in the manga. In the light novel, it was barely a volume. Why in the world would the anime just literally milk 8 episodes of the Endless 8? I do not understand the audacity of these people. You could finish this in 3 episodes? 2? Why milk it to 8? Is there nothing else you guys can do? Seriously, just why? Everything about season 2 was fine. It was good. It was concise. Well, not really concise, but it was fine. It was bearable. The Endless 8, you could have added 3 more stories. Do you realize how much of the content they missed with just making 8 episodes of the same thing? They could have added 2 or even 3 stories. I mean, even now, it takes 1 story to get animated in 3 episodes. You have 1 story arc, 1 minor story arc. Well, not that minor, but I mean, it's something, okay? It's something. Just why 8? Why? Just... Back in the early days of my weeb stay, I was a fan of shonen anime. One of the first anime I watched was Naruto, and man, looking back at that, it was an amazing series when I was young. Then there was a day when I saw this weird anime series that looked different from what I normally watch. It had this slice of life feel, with this high school love comedy aspect, and it was, well, underwhelming. But for some reason I kept watching it. I found out that there was a sci-fi aspect, and the more I watched, the more I got interested. This was Haruhi Suzumiya. And now in 2020, it was announced that the final volume would be published in November of the same year. With this news coming out, I decided to take a look back at the series and see how it impacted anime pop culture, how it potentially led the way for Western weebs, like myself, to start watching more anime outside of action-packed, fighting, shonen anime titles, and the rise and fall of the series. Yo, my name is Burai, and this is the reappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya. Now, before taking you guys on a trip down memory lane, my friend suggested that I should read the light novel and get a better idea on how to approach this video. So, I was able to find all 11 light novels, translated, and decided to try and read through all of them, instead of rewatching the anime in the right order. And after finishing just volume 1, the series as a whole feel like they aged pretty well actually, despite getting translated 2 years after the anime was localized. So, let's have a little recap of how this story started, especially for those who haven't seen this series yet. The story is fully narrated by Kyon, a cynical and snarly character who, in the prologue of volume 1, always wished for someone extraordinary to appear since he was young, like espers, aliens, or even time travelers, to a point where he dreamed to be a psychic to any of them. As he's transitioning from middle school to high school, he finds out that life is mediocre, repetitive, and overall boring. Same. And he begins to lose interest in finding these so-called special people. As he entered high school at North High, he starts to notice a very unique girl, Haruhi. Haruhi is an incredibly eccentric girl who hates having a boring life and dreams to find aliens, espers, and time travelers. Sounds familiar?
この中に宇宙人、未来人、異世界人、超能力者がいたら、私のところに来なさい。以上。
This piques Kyon's interest as Haruhi stated this during her school introduction, with Kyon trying to make small talk with Haruhi, with her either ignoring him or biting back at him with insults. Later on in the first volume, Kyon suggests to Haruhi that instead of waiting for these special people to come to her, she should try and look for them, which leads to Haruhi creating the SOS Brigade. She called it the Spreading Excitement All Over the World with Suzumiya Haruhi Brigade. In making the SOS Brigade, she takes over the literature club, which only has one member, Yuki Nagato, a generic librarian-type kudere, and she drags her into the group, to which she's, well, fine with, like all the other kudere girls. A few days later, she drags in another potential member, Mikuro Asahina, the moe girl who slowly becomes the group's mascot. She does join, reluctantly. To fully fill up the 5th slot of the group, she tries to find a mysterious transfer student, with, to her avail, she does find Itsuki Koizumi, the most polite and affable-mannered person within the group. As time goes on, the 3 members reveal to Kyon that they are indeed an alien, a time traveler, and an esper. They all describe Haruhi as having somewhat godlike powers, and that they were all sent to observe her. Kyon, being the only normal one of the group, doesn't believe any of this BS, until Koizumi shows him what Haruhi can do to the world. literally destroying and reshaping it until she no longer views it as boring. The anime and light novel plays out the lives of these characters, specifically in Kyon's perspective, and through this, he gets more and more interested with what's going on, although on the outside he thinks whatever Haruhi wants to do is tedious. The series in itself can be seen to have different layers to the general story, one being it as a high school love comedy, another to this level of sci-fi that oversees this development, and another one that pays homage to the Japanese pop culture, like anime, cinemas, and TV programming. All of this being said, the first season of Haruhi was officially released in Japan in 2006, and the anime was released in a non-linear order, meaning it was slightly randomized by RNG. But this found great success in Japan, getting 4th place out of 100 animes in Japan's online popularity poll at the time. But the weirdest success it got was from overseas. Not a lot of Western audiences were expecting this to be a hit, as they were more exposed to casual shonen anime titles like One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, Fullmetal Alchemist, Code Geass, and many more. This was a series that diverted attention from these big anime titles, and yet it worked. It worked in a way where you can have this complete unique cast of characters at the time. Your typical hyper-eccentric lead girl, your generic moe side character, the glasses girl and reads a book all the time Kudere, the yes man hype man who agrees to anything, and the main character seeking excitement for his boring life. With the hype building up, they re-aired the anime in 2009, with Season 2 being played right after the end of Season 1. Season 2, being in non-linear order as well, was met favorably if you remove the Endless 8 arc, which, by the way, I don't know why they thought this was a good idea. 4 episodes. Even 3 could have been enough. But they did it. 8 by 8. Why? Just why? Fun note to add though, the English dub voice actors wanted to actually try out different things during the Endless 8 arc, like switching their characters around or doing each episode with a different accent. Unfortunately, it didn't push through. As the ceiling was getting closer and closer, the Haruhi movie came out, The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, which covered volume 4 of the light novel. This movie, for me, was the peak that Haruhi had made, earning an estimate of 200 million yen in its first week, having one of the most pivotal story arcs for the overall series, and the way that this movie was promoted was creative, showing a fake 404 error on their official website and a 5-form input fields, which was a reference to the 4th light novel of the series. The movie, released in 2008, marked the ceiling of success for the franchise. However, for me, the decline started in 2011. I say this because this was when the last light novel was made, and the author had not picked up the series since 2020, either with writer's block or just cause he's lazy. There were a few spin-offs, however, to try and keep the hype going, like the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya-chan, the Disappearance of Nagato Yuki-chan.
Remember when Haruhi Suzumiya was the thing?
But it didn't live up to people's expectations. There were also rumors of a season 3 of Haruhi, but Kyoto Animation, the studio that was handling the anime series, hasn't given any updates, just some spin-offs. And I mean, even the Nagato spin-off was animated by a different studio. Another impact that led to this downfall is that as other people started watching Haruhi, they wanted more of this, or at least something similar to this. So they turned to looking up other titles that could carry this so-called slice of life, Japanese high school setting with a twist. And my god, there were a lot. This set up the stage for shows like Hyoka, Snafu, Beyond the Boundary, and even Love Chinibyo and other delusions to satisfy those that watched Haruhi and wanted something more like that. Something more genuine. Fast forward to August of 2020, a unique announcement was made. After a long 9-year break, the author had decided to finally finish the series. Thank God. But that leaves us with a question. What could happen after this final volume? Well, for one, a conclusion to a story that supposedly died years ago, especially with how the story is pairing up Kyon and Haruhi. If the hype does come back, we could have a season 3 on our hands. I mean, if Index can get a season 3 after 6 years, and Bleach can get a season finale after it ended a while back, it's possible that Haruhi could get the same treatment. Hell, going for a long shot, Snafu got a final season around the time the light novel had just ended. Last, and maybe this is just a personal bias of mine, I want to see how a season 3 of this anime would stack up to these other anime titles getting released every season. Not gonna lie, but I feel like it would still do pretty good, given that I still hate the Endless 8 arc with a burning passion. But the other story arcs of Haruhi were interesting, especially with college Kyon and Haruhi going to the same university. But that's a story for another time. If you guys made it to the end of this video, thank you very much. This took me a long time because I've been busy adulting, playing some Genshin Impact, researching this topic, and overall just being a bit lazy. If you guys did enjoy this, please subscribe to the channel. I plan on making more anime related videos and some light novel versus anime videos as well, because if I start getting lazy again, I'll have to start paying my editor with games, and I do not want that. I also want to give a big thanks to Ryotaro Mihara for his case study on Haruhi in the US. This really helped a lot, and I mean a lot. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao!